got Missouri over in Columbia, Missouri at 4 o'clock on the SEC Network. Looking forward to going on a true road game here with our football team. We had really good work this morning for a Tuesday practice, and working on some things to improve our football team. A lot of respect for Barry Odom. In my time here at South Carolina and his time at Missouri, I've got a lot of respect for him, first of all, as a person, but also as a football coach. And they got a really good football team. Derek Dooley's our offensive coordinator. Derek and I were together at LSU and the Miami Dolphins, and a tremendous respect for the job he's done last year with Drew Lock, and kind of accentuated the things that he did well. And he's done a fantastic job with Kelly Bryant, a young man that I've got tremendous respect for. This year is completing right at 70% of his balls. They have a really good offensive football team. They're very athletic and big on the offensive line. Beatty and Roundtree are both really good runners. The tight end, Albert O, is a really good player. I'm not going to pronounce his last name. I probably won't get it right. And but both receivers, Knox and Nance, are both guys that can finish on the top end. So they've got a really talented offensive football team. Defensively, it all starts up front with those guys. Jordan Elliott's a really good football player, played against us last year. Both ends can really rush the edge. They do a lot of movement up front to create confusion for you. Cale Jarrett's a really good linebacker, is a 4-year starter, and they're talented on the back end. And then McCain, the specialist for them, does all 3 phases, does plays kicking and does kickoff and punting. And he has got a huge leg, and they're really solid on teams. So got our work cut out for us. We're looking forward to getting back on the field. I can assure you of that. Injury report-wise, there's really no change. Brad Johnson and Rendricus will not play again this week. I don't expect them both back until after the open week. So I'll open up for any questions.
Well, I know he had the thumb thing last week, but where's A.J. Turner been these first 3 games?
Good. I mean, he's he's missed some time with the thumb. He had the shoulder in training camp, and he missed a lot of time, and that's really what put him behind the 8 ball a little bit as far as reps and turns at a new position. And but again, he's a guy that we need to continue to come on, number 1 on special teams, and then number 2 at corner, because we need more guys we can play there.
Well, the guys in here talked to us today. A lot of them said that this was a desperate team. Have they worked and practiced like a team that is desperate to kind of turn things around?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think we played a really good team on Saturday. I think our guys played their ass off, and unfortunately, we didn't make enough plays that we needed to make to win the game. I like, again, when you're in the locker room when the game's over and you see the guys obviously hurting, that's not a good thing, but it's a good thing. And it bothers them. We have really good leadership. We have a very good culture in this organization, and the leadership's in a really good spot. And meeting with those guys on Sunday and talking about where we are, and being realistic and understanding it's not where we want to be and not where we thought we're going to be, but this is where we are right now. So understand where we are and what we've got to do to crawl out of it, and that's what we're going to do.
Will, when you take a freshman quarterback on the road, do you have to simplify anything from the offensive game plan or from a communication standpoint to kind of make Ryan feel a little more comfortable?
Colin, we work with crowd noise at every practice. We did again today. That was something that's, obviously you're always concerned about it. So it's always a concern. But I think it goes back to kind of what we talked about the first 2 weeks. What does Ryan feel comfortable with? And let's make sure we get him in situations he feels comfortable with. But we've taken a lot in both games with him because he's able to handle a lot. And make sure, again, that was my notes walking off field. Remember, this is his first start, and that's what we'll talk about this afternoon with our offensive staff.
How does Kelly Bryant look different over here, Coach? How does Kelly Bryant look different with Missouri on film, and how much does it help having the experience against him, knowing what he can do despite the change in skill set and change in his game?
I don't really know. There are some similarities offensively with what everybody does when you talk in terms of 11 personnel or 12 personnel, run game, throwing game-wise. I'm just talking schematically that carries over between teams. But he's a winner. That's the one thing that jumps out at you. He throws the ball extremely well. He throws the vertical balls well. He evades and moves to create, to throw the ball more than he does run the ball. And those are things I don't know that facing him before at a different school means an awful lot, other than I've got tremendous respect for him.
Well, now that you've had a chance to look at the tape from Saturday, what did you like, about Ryan's start? What do you think he needs to improve on this week at Mizzou?
Well, again, there's a lot to like. There's some mistakes made. Sure, we didn't create emotion on a critical third down situation. I mean, there was a couple things here and there that, is big picture wise, he's a freshman, and there's going to be some mistakes that are going to be made. But to do a lot of the things that he did athletically and mentally, and just from the fortitude of having some toughness about him, there's a lot to like about the performance. And there's some things that we'll obviously coach him up on, but there's a lot of things we don't have to coach him up on, that the intangible qualities of what he possesses. So that's that to me says an awful lot.
What's been the biggest coaching point this week with the secondary, and have you been trying different combinations over the course of the week to try to see what you want to do this week?
Well, I don't know that there's one, John, emphasis. I think we had some issues of staring at the quarterback in man coverage, which you can't do. You got to cover your man first. They're not throwing it to you, they're throwing it to him. And if you are in phase and you do work yourself in phase, then play the ball. We want our guys to play the ball. But we had some issues as far as those things. We just had some fundamental breakdowns of playing, a throwback, a foreign first crosser, matching the route the right way, which is we had practiced it all week. It's the same route combination we had all week, and carrying it over from the practice field, from the meeting room to the practice field to the game day. And we didn't do that with, a couple experienced players, and that was disappointing. And we do have some youth back there with both John and Jamie taking some snaps. And I can almost, hate to say it, I can deal with some of the mistakes when a young can't continue to have some of the mistakes we've made with some others. We're certainly capable of playing better, and I expect that we will.
Coach, you guys took quite a few chances last Saturday. Is that going to be the persona now going forward, more aggression? And, players said that DeCarian said to you guys, trust them a little bit more to do some of those things and be more aggressive on fourth downs. And obviously it's situational, but could that be?
It's all game to game. What do we got to do to win the game? So at the end of the day, we're going to do what we feel like as a staff. In every football decision we make in the organization is about winning and what puts us in the best situation to win the game. And that was a situation we felt like we needed to steal some possessions in the game. Going into the game, and the game's changed. The situation of the game changed. You get in the game, and all of a sudden you get down 14 points. You may have to change some things you want to do in the game. It may not be the same approach you had going into the game. So all those things change depending on how the game is going. And it's all about, the situation and what it, presents itself and making the right decision for your football team.
Will, running the ball pretty well Saturday and just 3 sacks and 57 pass attempts. What are the specifics in the strides that your offensive line has made?
Well, I think we're more athletic, and I think we're more powerful at the position. You look at Jordan Rhodes and Javon Gwynn, both young players, but both guys that have girth and power. They're both very athletic, and they get their hands on you. They're really strong. Donnell has always been a guy that we've had a lot of confidence in, and Hutch and Dylan Wanham have played really well on Saturday. So, all 5 of those played every snap. I think it was 91 snaps, and I think that Eric Wolford does a really good job of training his players and getting them ready for game day. But I think we're more athletic and we're more powerful than we've been up front.
Will, how do you address and correct some of the tackling issues that you had on Saturday?
Well, again, really from in the big picture, we had about 11 missed tackles for the game. There were some really good players out there that we were missing on. So, again, we're going to continue to coach, and we need to bring our feet. We need to quit worrying about trying to get the ball off people and secure tackles and then trying to get the ball off people. And that's something that's not just being coached this week. It's been coached for a long time. But players have to make decisions and snapshot decisions on game day. And sometimes it's easy to be critical of a player in a situation when you're going up against an elite player and trying to get him on the ground. So we'll continue to coach it.
Well, have you maybe looked at Jay Urich on defense any at all?
No.
Just as you said before, that he's a real good athlete to have him on
Sure.
the field. Is there just more emphasis to try to get him on there on offense?
Yeah, trying to get him more on offense, right?
When you look at this Missouri defense, their first game, it seemed like they had a lot of trouble with Wyoming, and then the last 2 have just really locked down. When you watch the film, was there something that changed or something that kind of clicked for them that you kind of saw?
No, I think there was a couple chunk play yardage. They had a power read. They had an inside zone. They had a couple plays pop on them in man coverage that were big, what I call chunk plays. One was a 70-yard run. I think that was a 60-yard run against Wyoming. the field position swings in that game. And, a lot of people don't know this. Wyoming is a very difficult place to play. The elevation is real. It's not, when we were at University of Texas, we played up there. And we were told to tell our players all week, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. And I had about 5 guys puking on the sideline. And after about the third guy puked, Sergio Kendall looked at me and said, quit saying it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. I'm dead. And we were in the middle of the first quarter. So that is a huge factor of playing out there. And you could see that as the game wore on, that obviously that fatigue of the elevation did affect them out there.
Will, you talk about it all the time in the past that, one of the goals you guys have is winning the East. Now that you're playing your first East opponent, how does the energy maybe pick up a little bit more this week?
Well, I thought we had good energy at practice today. It was one of the things we talk about all the time is having the opportunity to win the East. This is a first Eastern Division opponent, and that's been emphasized by our leadership group and myself today at practice. Mm-hmm.
About the rushing defense's performance against Bama, and what is the game plan to stop Larry Roundtree in Missouri?
Well, again, I think that we played well in the run game at times. I thought that when you're able to hold them right at 3 yards a carry, that's pretty good. We want to be at 3.3 per carry in any game, and we think that's winning football in the running game. So we were able to do that against a very big offensive line and an organization that I know prides itself in trying to run the football. So that was a step in the right direction. A little bit different this week, a big athletic offensive line and smaller backs that certainly are guys in Roundtree and Beatty both can get the ball on the edges. They're really one-cut runners. They get the ball north and south extremely well. We played against them last year, so we have a pretty good idea of the type backs they are. We've got a lot of respect for them.
Just taking the 2 games in FBS competition, where do you think you've progressed in the greatest areas, and where do you think the work still needs to come?
On what do you do?
It's just overall on the football team.
Well, again, defensively, we've got to improve tremendously on the back end. The explosive plays is something we emphasized going into the game, and we didn't obviously handle that situation very well. Playing more consistent on the defensive side of the ball because we have had some spurts where we have played well. I've been pleased with our special teams. We need to do a better job in kickoff returns than we did a week ago. They did a nice job in their coverage units and switching some things up, and we didn't get a hat on a hat in the return game, and we've got some explosive guys back there to give us opportunities in the return game. And then offensively, we've got to continue to progress and stay balanced in what we do. We've got to be able to provide Ryan a running game to where we don't feel like we've got to put it on his shoulders. Late in the game, obviously, it became a throw game when we got down a couple scores. So, that was obvious, those situations of throwing the football. Continue to protect the quarterback and develop some run game on offense each week.
The trophy you guys play for in this game, where do you keep it during the year, and do you bring it out during the week, like to meetings, practice, or anything like that?
It's in our team meeting room right now. We talked about it this morning to our players. The Mayor's Cup.
And who do you have coordinating, bringing that out to the game? Since
George Wynn. He's our operations guy.
Yeah. Just curious.
As you were kind of talking about the secondary and the defense, is a team like Alabama perhaps a little unusual in the way that they kind of, or I guess, do they kind of force you to keep the secondary guys a little bit more on an island with how much the threat of their running game kind of makes you keep the box numbers a little more advantageous for you and kind of maybe leave them on an island a little more? Or?
Well, we mixed it up. We've played man, we've played zone, we played split safety, we played two high, we played quarters. We played a lot of different looks in the game. To try to give some different looks, and we didn't, play as well as we needed to, is the bottom line.
Is a true freshman quarterback throwing 57 passes in his second game against an Alabama more a function of who Ryan Helinski is, how the game has changed, or maybe how you have changed as in your 7 years as a head coach?
Well, I haven't changed at all. So with that being said, going in the game is always the comment of we got to do what we have to do to win the game. And I think it speaks volumes about Ryan, and I think it speaks volumes about how and I can't remember who I had this discussion with the other day of young skill players are so much further advanced in 2019 as opposed to maybe 2007, 2008 because of 7-on-7, because of all of the different training mechanisms you have now from a skill set standpoint. And I think that quarterbacks and skill players and defensive backs, even when you get them now, they're so much further along because of the 7-on-7s, because of the individual training that guys get now from that standpoint.
Over the years, how do you see punters improve from year to year, and what have you seen out of Charlton going into this year that's allowed him to obviously flip the field several times Saturday?
No doubt. I mean, he's a very valuable guy. When we first got here, he wasn't the most charming individual in the world. You can ask him and he'll agree. But he's one of my favorite players on the team. He's a guy that's always quick-witted, and he and I have a good time at practice when we're in punt period together. But he's got a huge leg. He's a great competitor. He really competes hard at punting and improving himself and works really hard at his craft. And he's got a tremendous future. He really does. Really proud of Joseph.
Is Keir Thomas still sidelined? How is that ankle progressing?
Yeah, he has gotten his sutures out. He still has still draining a little bit on his ankle there, but they've cleared him for some exercise stuff. And I think within a week, going to get him in the weight room and get him going a little bit quicker. And we'll see. I'll probably know more after the open week exactly where things are as far as he's concerned. I think it's going to be at least another 2 to 3 weeks before they clear him. His ankle feels great. As far as that was concerned, it was all about the infection and handling that at this time.
Well, how do you feel like your team's performed on third down, both on offensive and defensive, through, I guess, the first 3?
Not as well defensively in the 3rd and 3 to 6, 3rd and 7 to 10. I think we've been pretty good percentage-wise. I'd have to go over, and look at it, going in the last ball game, and I think we were pretty successful in that 7 to 10 range. 3rd and 3 to 6, been extremely disappointed. I felt like we were in some good calls and some situations to get off the field, and a couple times. One time we didn't cover the back, and I mean we had some just fundamental breakdowns that we just can't afford to have.
Well, I know Debo kind of had free reign on the kick return because Debo was shy. Do you guys tell him, more often than not, take the free 25 yards?
Well, the way we were blocking the other night, we did. I told Coleman, I said, we got a long season in front of us, and we're not blocking very good right now. Let's fair catch this thing. So we need to do a better job of protecting that guy and giving him an opportunity because he is a weapon and a guy that obviously if we'll do a good job blocking, we'll give him a chance, and that's a play we need to take advantage of.
Will, during training camp, losing 2 tight ends and with Nick's uncertainty, what has Kyle Markway brought to that room as far as leadership and stability?
Yeah, stability would be the word that would jump out at me. The guy has played really good football for us. He's been a very steady contributor his entire time. I was thinking back to our first trip out there, our second year, he got hurt out there, and I know that was, he had some frustration with some injuries his first couple of years when I was here. But here he is in grad school. He still has 2 years to play this year and next year. But a really good football player. He's playing at a really high level. He gives us a lot of variety in the passing game. He does a good job in the underneath zones and finding soft spots in coverage. But he does a good job blocking at the point of attack, and he's played really good football for us.
What have you seen out of Jemias Williams? What's kind of prevented him from taking that next step? What does he need to do better?
I think more than anything, John, just consistency in his performance. Whether it's mental, whatever the case may be, is something we've really challenged him because he's had some really good plays and some really good flashes of ball and playing extremely well. And then we just had some mental mistakes here and there that we got to correct. And I always say that the secondary and the offensive line, those are the 2 areas that you better be communicating. You better be playing at a high level, or you're in for a long day. And that's not something we've played at a high level so far this year. But it's not all on him. There's a lot of guys that need to play better as well.
Well, how is Jake's mindset since the surgery, and how soon, if he hasn't already, does he plan on kind of getting back to meetings and helping team?
I talked to him last night. He was in the building Sunday. Of course, we've had all these guys getting sick, so we told him to go home. But it was good to get him back in the building, get him around the guys. He's having a hard time. He won't travel with us probably for about 6 weeks because of they don't want him to put him through all that business. But obviously he's disappointed. He sounds great, but that's who he is. He's going to be positive about where he is and what he needs to do to get where he wants to get back.
Well, with Kyle coming back to Missouri, he's a kid obviously from St. Louis. Missouri's been in the league 6-7 years now. How much is that area part of your? Do you look at to explore recruiting wise? They've had some players here or there over the last couple of years. Ezekiel Elliott obviously being one of them. How much do you explore that, an area that's an outlier obviously in the SEC?
Well, I always look at connections. So there's obviously a lot of family connections throughout. We recruit the entire country, and we spread a pretty wide net. Obviously, our focus is on the state of South Carolina first. We've got 27 scholarship players from the state of South Carolina. We're going to recruit North Carolina. We've done a really nice job in Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida, and that's really where our net is cast pretty wide. We have a lot of ties in the state of Alabama. Kyle Krantz has done a really good job in the state of Virginia of continuing to broaden us up the East Coast because there's a lot of direct flights that fly directly into Columbia. And then as we can kind of continue to branch further west, it's normally ties into a connection. And what I mean by that is that family in Charlotte, family in Atlanta, family in Charleston. So a lot of the times there's a lot of connection with that, and it's amazing to see how many families vacation on the South Carolina coast. So they come here in the summer, and then they have an opportunity to bring their son by to Columbia during that time, which is now a dead period. So you can't bring them by anymore in the summer, so that kind of sucks, But we try and find the best fits for our program, and I'm glad Kyle's here.
You mentioned the illness going around the team a few minutes ago. Is that something that's on its way out, or is that something that y'all?
I hope it's on its way out. We've had, we had, I think it was 14 last Tuesday that didn't practice. I think we had about 10 or 12 on Wednesday. We probably had 6 or 8 on Thursday. We had some more guys on Friday. But our training staff, Clint Haggard and his staff have done a fantastic job. We had a couple today, so hopefully it's on the way out. Yep.
What have you noticed about Ryan's persona over the last couple of weeks since he's gotten the starting job, and has that changed, or has more people gravitated to him as far as that goes?
Well, I don't know if I wouldn't. I only see him in the building, so he is the exact same he was last spring as far as his personality around our football team. I'm sure he's attracted some followers since he started, I would guess, but in our building and in the football environment of things, I haven't seen a change at all.
When you deal with sickness or even an infection like Kier's got, I don't know specifically what he's got, but how much do you have to worry about that in an environment like this where everybody's together all the time? How much time and energy do you put into squashing or keeping those things from happening?
Oh, well, Kier's was an infection in his ankle from the surgery. So that was nothing that was contagious. And so it's always when you deal with something that is contagious, which the bug we had obviously was in the building. We came in last week, and I think they've already been in this week to wipe the building. We've already done that twice now, and I think they're doing it again at the end of the week. So that's something that's very, again, Clint and his staff have done a fantastic job of being on top of all the things we need to do to keep our guys healthy.
Does this something we hear about this a lot? It feels like, does this kind of happen every year to a team? At some point, a sickness runs through, or is that more rare than?
I think it's the first time it's happened since I've been here. I don't remember it happening here before. I don't know, and I can't. It's hard to go back. I think at some other spots here and there it's happened. This is the first time we've ever had this many numbers of guys that have missed practice and missed time with us.
How difficult does it make preparation when guys are out?
Well, you just got to find time to, obviously the older the player is the better the situation, because they don't need as much practice time sometimes. We all need practice time, but they don't need as much maybe as a younger player. You got to make sure that they get, the installation, and we spend extra time with them to make sure that they get all the installation and the things that they need to do to be successful for game day. And so that's just something you got to spend extra time on.
Any other place you've been as an assistant, had a bad stretch like this?
Not that I remember, no.
You guys have had two games now with Nick Muse. Where do you feel like his game is? What do you feel like he's been able to sort of contribute early on?
I think Nick's playing really well. You go through training camp and you rep him all the time because you're trying just to get guys to understand the offense, continue to improve and get better at their skill set. And as you kind of get to game planning for the first game, his reps obviously are decreased drastically because of the uncertainties of him being able to play or not know. We didn't have any idea, and then we don't get really the word till, I guess, the Friday before Charleston Southern. So he gets thrust into that situation, and I'm sure he had some nerves and things that kind of go into playing in your first game in a new situation. And then really only one full practice week against a really good defensive football team. All he's going to do is continue to get better. He's got a great competitive edge. He has a really good skill set for the position and really has a good skill set for what we need at the position. So we're very pleased with him.
Well, where have you seen the biggest improvement in Kelly Bryant in the 2 years since you've faced him?
Well, again, I think that, the more snaps you take, the game continues to slow down for you. And I think he's got a really good command of their offense. Not that he didn't before, but I think he's got a really good command of what they do offensively. You see him directing traffic, changing the protections, switching the back, making sure they're straight with the tight end. I mean, there's a lot of things that you see. And again, I'm not saying we didn't see that before, but I think the command and the comfort level of what they do, you see is he's very comfortable with.
What does it tell you about Kyle Markway as a kid to sort of have come through, back-to-back setbacks each year, watch other guys kind of come in and just sort of stick with it and come through sort of the way he has?
No, I mean, again, it says a lot about his upbringing. He's got a great family. They're able to come to a lot of the games and come a long way for a lot of the games. But again, it's Kyle's a first-class young man. He's got a huge future in front of him in a lot of ways, whether it's in football or the business world or whatever it is, because he's extremely bright, extremely intelligent. He's got a great work ethic, and he's going to be tremendously successful. The type person he is.
With Jay and DeCarrion both bouncing back and forth between the two positions, how does it change as you guys are in season and jumping from week to week with game planning and stuff with those guys?
Well, it is difficult, and it's very difficult to be fair. First of all, I would say with DeCarrion, because obviously there's some things at wideout that we spent about a week and a half really concentrating with him on in preparation for the season, and then obviously we had to switch some gears, and he's handled it beautifully, like he does everything. And but it's hard to get the time with Dan Warner, the time with Brian McClendon, the basic fundamentals of the tight end position, the receiver position, which is something that's totally, new to him as far as those things. Jay is spending more time at receiver, and we're keeping him up to date in the quarterback room in case that situation presented itself. No different than when I was in the NFL, you had to always have an emergency third situation. All right. Have a great day.